my nights would be better spent staring at the open sky. I don't know where lies end. Just hope it's better than what's behind.
Roughhousing. Now, I'll kind of give a little bit of background on this topic because I think most people would say, you know, I mean, I encourage my son to roughhouse because he and I roughhouse together. But, you know, I'm a teacher. I'm walking through the junior high hallways, and the number of boys I see just like hammering each other into lockers, right? And a lot of times it's pretty controlled. It's very light. It's very lighthearted, right? Other times it's like one kid shoves one kid into another, and then boom, it's like, you know, bowling pins, right? So I kind of asked the guys just kind of, how do we, like, should we encourage roughhousing? What do we think about that? Which I think that will be a very short answer. But, you know, should we encourage roughhousing? And then how do we teach our young men that time and place idea? Or should that be a focus? That's kind of my thoughts on it. Because I would say, yes, we should encourage roughhousing, but there's a time and a place and like a level, right?
Right.
But what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because as you were talking through that, you know, roughhousing, I just remember as a kid and even like seeing it with my boys, roughhousing can happen at any time, right?
Yes.
Like in the car, in church, at school, you know, like in, you know, right at bedtime, you know, and you know, with all my boys, I absolutely encourage it. And I think a couple of reasons. One, first off, boys have, I mean, not that girls don't, but I think boys have just an inordinate amount of energy.
Absolutely.
And like part of the way that they burn that off is through physical activity.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think when you look at I'm just going to take from like a biological perspective. You look at the way that, you know, young animals, males, like the way that as they grow, right, and come into like maturity, they are constantly fighting and testing each other's strength, and I think that we have some of that in us as well, right, in the sense of we desire to test our strength. We want to know limits. We want to see how capable we are, and I think that roughhousing really allows us to do that, because roughhousing is that like kind of middle ground between true fighting and, you know, really just discourse. Because oftentimes, even though it's spontaneous, a lot of times that roughhousing, there's maybe some unspoken rules, right? Between you and your buddies.
Don't go for the eyes, man.
Yeah, don't go for the eyes.
And don't go for the
don't punch the crotch, man.
Don't go for the crotch.
Don't do it. My 8-year-old went through a phase of like doing that to his brothers, and I had to tell him, you can't. That's for like a real fight kind of thing.
I remember when we were kids, if somebody did that, everybody else got on you. Everybody else ganged up on you. Like you were gonna get. I mean, granted, I grew up with two other us. There was 3 of us, and then a bunch of friends, right? And if anything like that happened, there'd be somebody else coming after you.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, I think that it's an important part of just like development for boys.
Okay.
And I think, you know, it's interesting because our modern culture, I think, at least I think they want to take that away.
I mean, yes, I would agree with that. I think it's hard I can give you the point of view of a teacher.
Sure.
Because, you know, if something like that happens, who's responsible?
Well, I mean, the teacher, sure.
And who gets sued and who gets yelled at? It's us in the school, right? So I do understand that aspect of it, right? But again, it's a constant stream of that's a reaction to another inappropriate reaction, right? Like there's a line between now there is a line between roughhousing and fighting.
Sure.
Right. There is a line there. And, you know, I think sometimes you have people who want to blur that line, and you see it in parents too, right? Where it's the other side where they're just roughhousing. It's like, no, your son's 3 times the size of that kid and he pounded him into the ground. Yeah. And your son had fun. Yeah, I would have fun too if I was beating the crud out of some kid, like, and my dad was saying it's totally fine. You know what I mean? So there's a line between, again, it's like that quote, boys will be boys, right? Like that's used so often to justify awful things.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not boys will be boys is like, hey, today I was wrestling with two of my nephews. One of them falls backwards, his foot hits the other one in the face, and boom, gives them a bloody nose.
Right.
That's boys will be boys. That's not boys will be boys is not, hey, I'm gonna go pick on this kid and beat the crud out of him every day and steal his lunch. That's not it. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you think though that there need to be more parameters for boys around roughhousing, like because of how our current society is, right? Do you think that we need to make more of an effort to maybe corral it a little bit and put more parameters on it, in the sense of whether that's like more of a creating a space for that to happen that can be supervised, or that like and this is not a good
sports.
Well, sure, yeah, absolutely, sports.
I'm gonna say, I mean, football, wrestling.
Yeah, but I mean, even outside of that, right? Like, and this is a terrible example, but like the immediate thing that comes to my head is like Fight Club, right? I am not saying
Tim's like, my kids started this great Fight Club in 3rd grade. And they shut it down.
Nobody would know because they wouldn't talk about
Nobody
it.
talks about Fight Club. They just these kids come in from lunch and they're just all bruised up. Like, what happened? Nothing.
Right.
I fell down some stairs.
But I do think though that like that idea of, and I think that's why you see the rise of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling and some of these sports. Like there is a I would say a fascination with things like UFC, and it just makes me wonder, like, would it be helpful if we gave our kids more of, like, our boys more of that opportunity, rather than it's just like spontaneous? It's like, okay, cool, guys, you guys are actually going to have like this sanctioned roughhouse, and these are the rules, and these are like, this is why it's appropriate. I don't know. It just makes me. Because here's the.
Are you talking about like within a school or within like just like
society.
our families and society?
Yeah,
it should
I think
because I feel like a lot of. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like we get together, we go to. So my brother works at school. He opens up the wrestling room for us. There's a bunch of pads everywhere, and we just unleash the kids in there. And Declan's jumping around doing stuff. So I'm tackling him. He's tackling me. Like we do that. And our boys, I mean, they get together and they're constantly, oh my gosh, remember the last time you were over and they were playing football in the living room, which is awesome, right? But there's this giant brick fireplace and they're spinning each other around. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can already see one of the kids getting spun head first to the bricks. And I'm like, I don't need to get, like, there's a line there, right? But like at the same time, it's like, like, that's okay. It's okay for them to test that strength. And honestly, I want that. I want Declan to know, I want my son to know how strong he is. Sure. I also want him to know how strong other people are, right? Like you need to understand that, there's limits to your abilities too.
Well, sure. And yeah, I guess as I think through it, I just, that was why the reason for that is society is so much less physical now.
Yes.
Right. And there's so many, I mean, whether or not we like it, there's so many more rules about how you can look,
regulations,
rules. And I don't think that that's going away, right?
No.
And so I think that helping them understand, and even giving them those outlets maybe can help them as they become adults to go, okay, if I'm feeling this way, like these are the things I need to engage in. Now, I'm not saying we can't do that, like, just as parents or whatever. I'm just wondering if that needs to be more of a mindset of society, because I just think that, like, a lot of times the gripe coming from people with opposing views maybe is like these just spontaneously happen,
like in the middle of the hallways.
In the middle of the
and then I have to deal with them as teacher.
And you end up with kids who end up severely injured, or like unintentionally, or they turn into
put
a fight.
Hole in a wall.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Or it turns into, or they hurt somebody else.
Exactly.
That's the hard. Like as a teacher, I talk to my boys about this a lot of times. Kind of like, guys, we are a little more physical about things. Like when we tease each other, it's like, we'll talk a little trash, but a lot of times there's a little elbow thrown with it. Like,
absolutely.
It's just kind of, I don't know, it's part of how it is. And, but there's a time and a place, and you got to be aware of the time and the place. And at school, in the hallways, is not the place and it's not the time.
Right.
And I mean, I can give you one example where these two boys, I had gotten on them multiple times. one of them shoved the other one. He fell into a girl who had some medical issues with her legs and hurt her. Yeah, that was thankfully she was not she was not majorly hurt or anything, but when you knock a girl over who's on crutches, like, dude, you got no brain cells right now. What is going on?
Right.
And so that kind of stuff, but that's actually what brought it to my mind, was just kind of that idea of, again, that idea of control. We bring that up a lot, that idea of men, we have strength, physical, mental, spiritual strength. We're supposed to have that. We're supposed to pursue it. And that's a big part of masculinity, is strength in all those different areas. But it's not just strength. It's strength wielded with control. And so making sure that we teach our boys to have control over themselves, I think, is incredibly important.
Well, and I guess the appropriateness too. I think I think that part of the problem and is that it happens spontaneously, right?
And what happens when you're married and you get angry and your entire habit is built into physical reactions to your anger,
right?
And you do that with the boys, but now all of a sudden you're married. That's worrisome.
Sure, that
you know what I mean?
I'm sure that could bleed over.
And I think that's one of the major points of that idea of control in that strength. And that's the idea of the roughhousing, right? To teach them to control, give them an environment that's safe where they can actually put out that, like you said, put out that energy, but test that strength and learn to control it and learn what they can do.
Yeah. And that's why I guess I'm going to sit here and just say the same thing.
Yeah.
in the sense of I guess the solution to me, in order to because I don't want roughhousing to go away. Like, I am afraid that, because I think fighting in schools, right, that's been completely taken out. And I think that, and
it's ultra violent. That's the other side of it, just to let you know. But
I think that part, in part, because you have, and this is a completely different discussion, but like, you have basically said, you can't fight, you can't do anything physical. Like, if it happens in school, there's all these repercussions. And so you end up, I think, with kids who don't understand when it's appropriate, have these urges, or have these, like, this desire and this inclination naturally.
The emotional aspect of it.
Yes. And so it's all like it's building up. And so it becomes really difficult, I think, because here's the thing, right? Those boys who were roughhousing in the hall, like, they weren't thinking at all.
No.
Right. Right. And so it really becomes like,
why getting them to think?
Why did they even think that it would be appropriate in the hall?
Yeah.
Right. And I think in part that the reason that is because they don't have other areas where it's encouraged.
Well, it's also maturity.
Oh, for sure.
It's also maturity. So I think there are varying aspects there, but using that, like you said, using those environments to teach that control, I think would be huge. So
So I think you can't get away from allowing boys to roughhouse.
Yeah.
And honestly,
it's like you said, it's gonna explode out eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you see it in different ways now, because now we are really forced to bottle it up. So
Wait, this silent, you'll be alone, far from friends in life. You'll spend your evenings getting stoned to numb the ache inside.